I don't know about you, Brittany, but that music always gets me hyped.
I got goosebumps. I'm like, wow.
Yes. Hello, LEC community. Welcome to another Latinx Educator Award nominee spotlight. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We're meeting a new friend, Brittany Benavidez. Brittany, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
Of course, I'm so excited to chat with you. You and I are getting to know each other through this conversation, and I'm so excited for this new relationship. I had to bite my tongue before we hopped on to ask you all about you, but now is the time. So, Brittany, tell us a little bit about you, your story, and your journey to get where you are now.
All right. So I am from a small town in South Texas where the demographic is majority Hispanic. So moving to the Midwest was a bit of a culture shock. I was blessed to live with my abuelita when at my sixth grade year, beginning middle school. Those were some of the golden years of my adolescence. We went through some pivotal moments in high school where I lived on my own at 16. I was fortunate enough to have educators that took the time to check on me and help open the proverbial doors that felt welded shut to my future. And because of those educators, I'm where I'm sitting now. Um, to escape trauma that comes along with living in poverty, I took a chance on the possibility of being the change. And through grit and determination and hard work, I earned my degree being the first generational college student. Everything that felt impossible became possible. And I broke the chains, that comes with the, the solitude of living alone and trying to navigate life. It was hard, but I just kept embracing my high school years with the teachers that took the time to care. And 4 years later, I got my degree, and I knew I wanted to work with children that were probably going through a similar story with me. And I typed in the keywords childhood education, and I found an organization called Kansas City Teacher Residency, which is now the Education Academy. And it another door opened, and I was like, okay, this is probably the path I'm supposed to take. And so now I'm in my fourth year teaching as a teacher of record, and I'm still craving the growth. I'm still trying to be better, to be the teachers that inspired me to be who I am now for the youngest scholars of our generation. And it's been quite the journey being here, and I'm all better for it.
I'm always like, oh my gosh, a lot, like in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
All of what you've gone through, right, to be here. First of all, shout out to our friends over at Educator Academy. We have we work together here and there. So we have similar missions, and yeah, I love them. I love them. I love their staff. And I mean, telling your story, I mentioned before we hopped on, there may be another 15, 16-year-old who is aspiring to go to college and to be the first, right? But the circumstances are maybe really difficult to getting there. And so hearing your story may be a pivotal moment for them. You know, why childhood education? Like, why were those the keywords that you typed in? Do you know? Do you remember?
Because I grew up on Section 8 housing, welfare, food stamps. It's very normal in the community that I grew up in. And a lot of my classmates had very similar um, upbringings like I did, wearing like the same pair of shoes for 2 years, having two pairs of pants, recycling the same backpack throughout the years, having like the minimum, right? And so
Yeah.
sorry.
Don't be sorry.
So I knew that there were lots of seasons, right, where I felt alone. And that's the key word, is that I felt alone sometimes. But we don't always have to internalize and carry the weight with us, because there were, I'm sure, like my classmates sitting next to me in 6th grade and 7th grade, all the way to high school senior year. We made it to the finish line. That we had a lot of common ground, right? And so I wanted to be able, and it took just one teacher to believe in me, and then for me to improve myself, that other teachers started to notice me, that, oh, Brittany's changing, she's putting in the work, she's putting in the dedication. And then I started to feel like, oh, I don't want to be a statistic, I don't want to be another college dropout. It's so easy um to regress. And so I just kept, pushing forward. And I realized that those childhood years were like the foundation for me to have the core to continue burning for a better future. And so when I work with 5-year-olds, I see their personalities growing and shifting. And if I could be that light to help nurture them and motivate them to crave and get a hunger for education, like, oh, there has to be more, then that's my why. And so I was like, it has to start somewhere. In high school, where our critical thinking is a lot higher, but I also think that 4 and 5-year-olds turning like 6 and growing, like their brains are still developing, their hearts are still forming. And that's where my passion is, because I used to be that kid that felt alone. And so it's just my passion to have my kids come to me, and I am able to help support them emotionally and academically and meet their goals. Very data driven, right? Because that's KCTR Education Academy, is like focus on the data, focus on the why, focus on the relationships. And so like when I look at my data and I see that there's 2 kids that have, you know, fallen behind, I'm like, okay, what's the why? And so then I have to um, reach within myself and say, okay, what can I do to better support them? Because everything else, like academically, social emotionally, it's working for the majority of my kids. But the minority of my kids, it's what's the root of it? What's the root of the problem? And so I I always reflect back to my upbringing and not giving up. And so if I could get them to where they're meant to be, I know it matters. I know that I've been told sometimes that, well, they're not going to remember you as a teacher. They're 5. I'm like, well, I disagree, because I have first graders that I had in pre-K that come to me every morning and tell me that I wish I could invent a time machine so I could have you as my teacher again. And so like that is my why. And I was like, that is why I do what I do, because what we do as educators matters. You have to be passionate about it. Sorry, I'm getting off topic, but
No,
that's the root.
I love all of that, and I'm so proud. I'm so happy. I'm so energized knowing that your students have you. And that's what our organization's about, and that's what this is all about, right? Is to recognize and to give homage to the people who are changing lives. And you're right. I mean, I taught 6th grade, and I have my kiddos, some of them are now 20, 21, 22 years old. And we text all the time because
Right.
they're needing help with scholarships or utilities, and right. And so yes, they will absolutely remember you. But speaking of paying homage and all of that, you are nominated for the LEC's Educator of the Year award. How do you feel about that?
Um, 12-year-old me would never have thought that I would be sitting here getting to meet you. But
Oh,
filled with gratitude to be nominated by someone who took time out of their busy day means a lot to me. That's which is why I pushed myself to step out of my comfort zone for this meeting. I want to let the person know that I appreciate their kindness. I just never would have thought that I would have been nominated for anything. It's not something that was at the forefront of my mind. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means that what we're doing gets recognized, and so I really appreciate that time and that moment. So thank you so much.
of course, and thank you to your nominator. And like I said before, Latinx Educator Awards, we've done now for 6 years, and the reason we do it is because of that. Teachers, the day to day is so busy, and you're fighting so many fires on a day to day, and not just negative, right? You're also having lots of successes on a day to day, and you have the kiddo who the light bulb comes on daily, but
Right.
we don't get to see that. The community doesn't get to see that. The outside of those classroom doors often don't get to see that, and so this is such a wonderful opportunity for us to shine light on those. Congratulations. You talked a little bit about, without kind of saying it, you talked a little about why representation matters. You talked about your childhood and like that relating to your kiddos. Tell us more about why you think representation in the classroom matters.
It matters because we stand together to help our scholars and their families not feel alone. When I'm called to the front office to help translate for families, I see the relief and the deep breath that they take on, like in their faces when someone understands them. Just the basic understanding goes a long way. And when I feel like I'm living my purpose. Because I'm from South Texas and I'm in the Midwest, and I'm like, oh, like there are other families that share the same culture as I do, and they're probably feeling alone like I did. And the and Latinx students are the minority in the district I serve, whereas where I was from, we were the majority. And so it's a big contrast. And so when I also see a teacher and they see me and they lean on me for support, and I'm so happy to be able to be that, like that beacon for them, like, oh yes, I'm happy to translate for you for conferences. And the parents are like, oh, so my student's doing good, because for the majority of the year they're not able to communicate with their teacher because that there's that barrier. And I'm like, oh yes, she's doing great, he's doing great. They've made friends, they've grown in this. And it's just the act of giving to our community is what makes my heart so happy. And so they're either, but I've noticed two different reactions: is they're either super relieved and thankful, or they're really shocked, like, whoa, like you understand what I'm saying and you're able to communicate with me. And that kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I wish there was more. That way they felt more comfortable. Because it's so far, it's just me and another Latinx educator in a community of about 100 other colleagues. So it's like I'm here and I let our principals know, our administration know, like, hey, like if you need me, here's my class number, here's my extension. And so they do. They call me. They're like, hey, Mrs. Benavidez, can you come down to the office real quick? I'm like, on my way. And so I'm always happy to do it. Even with kindergarten, I'm a pre-kindergarten teacher, and we have a kindergarten student who recently migrated from Mexico to the Midwest, and he was struggling. But I was so thankful that admin trusted me to be able to build a relationship with him and help him acclimate into his classroom. I even went and I'm so thankful to my principal. She let me bring in my tortoise so that we could bond over my tortoise. And but at first we always ask for like respectful boundaries, and I would ask him if he wanted a hug, because sometimes students need that, but he would always tell me no. And I was like, and I respect that. It wasn't until the seventh time we had our one-on-one that he finally was like, this is Miss Benavidez, I would like a hug. And I was like, oh, it matters. So he's not alone, he doesn't feel alone. And so and now he comes and he'll say hola. I'm like, hola. I won't say his name, but I'm like, ¿cómo estás? And he's like, muy bien. And he has a smile on his face. But a month ago, he was in the backseat of his brain. He was feeling alone. He was probably like, I want friends. And that's the first thing he told me, is like, quiero amigos, no tiene amigos. And I was like, well, we're going to work on that. And he's like, okay. And he's not alone anymore. He's made friends. And I was like, this is where I'm meant to be, because of students like that, because of students like me. And he's thriving now in kindergarten. So I'm just very, very grateful that the school that I work at trusts me enough to build those bridges. So yeah.
Yes, representation matters. That's the summary of that. I am tearing up. And I'm like, I don't know if my eyeliner is waterproof. So thank you. Oh my goodness. Yes. I've been doing this work for a while, right? I've been teaching. I've now been doing this work, and every time I hear it, I'm like, yes, right? Because I know that sigh of relief from parents. I
Right.
know that sigh of relief from kiddos, where it's like, you're from where I'm from, or you know the language I know, or even right, you like the things I like, right? You like turtles too, right? The like
Finding a
tortoises are. Yes, finding that connection. And the more diverse our educators are from all parts of the world who speak all types of languages, right? The more our kiddos will know that school is a place for them, right? Instead of saying, most of the people here don't look like me, maybe school's not
right,
for me,
right.
so thank you so much for all of that. I really appreciate it. You've also kind of mentioned some elements of my answers to my next question. Our mission is to create the conditions necessary for Latino student advancement. And a large part of that work is what we've done more historically, which is to support Latino teachers, because we know that when students have teachers that look like them, they're more likely to graduate high school. But what are your thoughts about how we can build the right conditions for the advancement of Latino youth?
I think exposure, to a better world, like real life experiences, going to college campuses, hiring educators that are passionate about reaching them. I think that's also a key is vetting educators that have the same core values and beliefs in their why to reaching the students that desperately need it. Unfortunately, youth is an extremely sensitive era. Core memories are formed. A lot of who we become are founded on those pivotal moments, like maybe when the light gets shut off or the electricity gets shut off, and you're seeing your breath in your own home because it's so cold outside. So it ultimately leads you down a journey of either being prosperous or crippling you. And so it's imperative that the school cares, that there are programs that honor and share their culture. So thinking outside of the box and having while we do have Hispanic Heritage Month, having like a festival. We used to have festivals a lot in our high school where it was like celebrating like South American countries and different parts of Mexico, and we would have this culture festival where we would have different foods, and every student would participate. It was student centered, so the students had to make their own booth and make their own food that the country that they were representing. And it was just so impactful that was another core memory that stuck with me. And it's like we could trickle that down to elementary and pre-K. I did it with my pre-K students. We had chips and dip, and the dips were like guacamole, queso, pico de gallo, and we went outside and hit a piñata, and they were I was my goal was to build those core memories. So, and some of them had never even tried pico de gallo. I didn't make it spicy. I left out the serrano peppers, but they enjoyed it, and I made it in front of them. And I talked about the colors. Okay, and I could go on about the hands-on experiences that we make, but by building the right conditions, it's providing them with real life experiences, having the funds to go to a college campus and seeing the university's Latinx Center. I think that would be one of the ways to move forward because not every school offers that.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great answer. Because I think it's often overlooked. Like schools become siloed so often. Like here's where all the learning happens, right? I think now in the last maybe 5 years, we're really working toward that world learning, which I'm excited about. But I think like talking about the pico de gallo, right? If your classroom is the
Yeah.
first time they see that, so that they can be curious and ask questions, and the next time they see it, it's not so off-putting, or they're not as maybe
Mm-hmm.
judgmental, right? Because I remember this from Ms. Benavidez's class.
They're like tomato. No, I don't want a tomato. But smell it. So I was
Yeah.
like, smell it. Does it smell like cilantro? And they're like, what? What's that? Smell it. And so it was just a really fun experience. A lot of them, we had voted on which one we thought we would like more, the guacamole, the queso, or the pico de gallo. And pico de gallo had like one. And we did, after our tasting and our chips and dip, everybody liked it. And I was like, see, it doesn't hurt to try.
See, I love that. I love it. I love it. Of course, we're talking about such like fun things, and I can totally see the pre-K teacher in you, right? I taught sixth grade, so you and I are kind of on, on different sides of the age groups. But um, speaking of all these fun things, obviously, unfortunately, we have just as many hardships in education and being educators. And so, my last question for you, maybe for that person who is struggling, who's needing some advice, what is it that, sorry, what is it that keeps you going?
Okay, so the simple answer is my students. I wake up thinking about how I could help them reach their goals. I used to believe, like I previously stated, that pre-K was such a young age that my time with them wouldn't matter. But I've seen my students in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, and they're all thriving. You know, they all had those fundamental skills to help them continue to grow. And even though your time with them is very short, you're leaving a mark in their lives to help shape them to be the person they're supposed to be in the future. So even though you may feel like the days are hard or they're long, and we have these lesson plans and we have these to-do lists and we have these deadlines, at the end of the day, your relationship with the student is what's going to outshine the the cloudy days, because we only have, if we're lucky, a full 9 months with them, and they're going to continue living. And when I was a student, my brief years that I have with my teachers are still with me 10 years later. So embrace the now, embrace your time with them, hug them, ask them if they're okay, check in with them, and you're doing a great job. I mean, you woke up today and you're working to better their future, and you matter. Your students matter. So I'm proud of you, whoever you are. You're doing great. Si se puede, right?
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate that you've mentioned. I'll be remiss to not mention that you've mentioned your former teachers as part of your success story and all of that. So shout out to all of those educators who poured into you. For you, Brittany, congratulations again on your nomination. Um, you have a whole community here watching you, listening, hearing your story, hearing your kiddo's story, that are supporting you and that love you from close and from afar. Brittany, any final thoughts before we hop off?
Um, I'm so grateful for this community. I can't wait to dive in and continue to grow as a fellow Latinx educator. Thank you so much. And this is just the beginning. So have a wonderful time.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. Brittany, stick around for a couple seconds. I'm just going to close us off and then we'll chat for a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Brittany's interview. Make sure you congratulate her in the comments, and we'll see you later for some more nominations. Bye, everyone.